In 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And welcome to a special edition of Integrated Interventions podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Dundas. I consider every one of them to be special, but this one, in terms of the education team, really stands out in what we're going to be covering in today's meeting. Joining us is Education Coordinator Kirsti Appleby. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
It's a topic that we have been diligently discussing and working on for a good year plus, I'd say a year and a half now.
Yeah.
And that is the topic of accreditation. Very exciting news to release that we are officially an accredited school, which is so awesome, through the eyes of Cognia, who is a nationally world-renowned accrediting body. So pretty much any therapeutic school you're going to find is going to have a Cognia accreditation. And so there's several other accrediting regional and national accrediting bodies that accompany Cognia. And so we are officially able to graduate our own students. Yeah,
so exciting.
It's so exciting. And when you think about it, what are some of the things that come to mind for you of what we can accomplish with this accreditation?
Oh, it brings so many opportunities to us just in order to help more students and to have more flexibility in what we can offer students too, which I am so excited about. Because a lot of the students that we do help with high school are the ones that have fallen through the cracks because the typical rigid school structure doesn't work for them. So it's nice to be able to provide a space for them where we can adapt to them instead of them adapting to us. So I'm really excited about this accreditation and all the possibilities that it brings us.
Well, and that's what it was born out of,
Yeah.
was that idea of reaching students who had essentially kind of fallen by the wayside. And it's not always the fault of the traditional K through 12 environment. It just happens to be that there are so many different types of learners and sometimes they're not able to properly address them. But also from the standpoint is you only have so many people to go around, and our one-on-one model is really what stands out about Integrated Academy. Just to say Integrated Academy out loud,
It's so exciting.
It just makes me so happy because there's been so much that's come into fruition. We've been, of course, with a lot of social media posts and getting word out to the therapeutic community that we are officially in Idaho. We're working on Texas currently as we speak to become accredited there. The ultimate goal is to graduate Idaho students with Idaho diplomas and Texas students with Texas diplomas. And that was a question that had come up at one point. So what does that mean for Texas? Any educational partnerships that are still we're working with, that doesn't affect accreditation or diplomas or college enrollments or anything. It just happens to be that the most efficient way is starting in one state and then creating what Cognia calls a system. So you have the exact same school in two different states. There's processes to get there, and you can't really. It's hard to do it at the same time. You could,
but it would take a lot longer.
For sure.
Yeah, lots more paperwork to be done.
Well, and from this perspective too, once you have done it one time, the second time is a little bit easier because you know what to expect. I always want to give a shout out to Cognia as an organization because they were tremendously helpful, and they really want to see people succeed. And they worked with us in order to work through some, unique situations because integrated interventions and Integrated Academy are very different in terms of organizations.
Yes.
And when you look at, like, for example, Integrated Academy, is not like some traditional school by any means, nor even like private schools for that matter. So you have to be creative in your approach, and Cognia had recognized that and said, we see these areas and we want to work with you to build up these unique areas in order to bring that to fruition, even if it kind of seems a little outside the box.
Yeah, and they were even really impressed and moved by the work that Integrated Interventions itself does, which was a huge selling point in the whole accreditation process for them too, and what we were trying to accomplish too with our Integrated Academy. That is really exciting to say. That's so exciting. But yeah, they were really impressed and moved with the work that Integrated Interventions does, and liked the fact that we tie that into the schooling piece as well as much as we can. Yeah, it definitely provides a unique experience and environment for everybody.
It provides an environment of safety and a place where students feel like they can be themselves. And that's been really neat to see, because we have seen scenarios where students come in very guarded, not sure what to expect. Of course, it takes time to develop those relationships, which we see, of course, in the program side with integrated interventions, but also even more so, we see more, I would argue, even more guardedness
Yes.
on the school side of things, because they have had so many opportunities that haven't worked out for them. Unfortunately, there have been far more failures than there have been successes. And then they use that as the situation to define themselves. Because I have not had success in A, B, C, D, E, F, G, that's going to translate on down through that, linear alphabet, essentially. So the fact that we're able to stop that, those negative aspects, and start to reframe them, and they start to gain those wins and successes and realize, wait a second, I think I can do this.
Yeah, it's huge. And I love seeing that because, yeah, like you said, they do come to us guarded because they have not had good educational experiences in the past leading up to them being with us. And so I try and make it a point to be like, no, we are here for you. We are here to make this a safe space. You can be whoever you are. And once they realize that we mean that, then their personality comes out. And then we see those huge leaps and bounds and like successes. And we're like, see, we knew you could do it. And then they gain that confidence in themselves, which is really exciting to see.
And it's more than just saying it. I mean, you have to back it up.
Yeah.
and they've seen that in other places they've been, where people will tell them, well, this is how it's going to be. And then they get in it and they're like, wait a second, this is what you said and how it was going to go does not match.
Yeah.
And with us, fortunately, we've been able to. So with those situations, we've been able to build those connections to where when we say it's going to happen a certain way, it does. And then they gain that trust and they're like, well, wait a second, something's different about this. And it's neat to see when they give us a chance, because really it's all I'm looking for is just the opportunity to try. Because if we just have that small bit of daylight that we can work with, then I think that great things can happen, and they do happen.
Yes, they do.
I've had people ask me in the past what makes Integrated Academy stand out amongst other high schools, online high schools that exist out there. And it always goes back to our one-on-one approach. Can you elaborate on what that means and how we put it into practice on a daily basis?
Yeah, so I know when people think of an online virtual school, they think that we're just going to plop a student in front of a screen and be like, okay, good luck. We'll be here if you need us. That's not what we do. We do that one-on-one approach where they work directly one-on-one with a tutor on their schoolwork, and then that tutor works with them to explain the stuff that they're learning, to actively have discussions and conversations on the work that they're doing, so they get that back and forth, and they're still doing schoolwork online, but they're having that face-to-face conversation where they can get more of that differentiated instruction that they need, that we are able to tailor what they're learning to their learning style or what makes sense to them, relating certain things to different topics that they're familiar with. One of our tutors did that with one of our students in their econ class. The student just wasn't understanding the concept that they were learning, so the tutor took something that they did know about and equated the lesson to that, and then it clicked. So we're able to do stuff like that in that one-on-one setting that is very different than from what you would see in other online virtual schools. Even if they do have people there to help the students, we are dedicated to that one student for a set amount of time to help them get through their schoolwork.
Well, and with online high schools too that have dedicated teachers, there are only so many hours to go around. They'll have maybe an office hours or maybe they'll have dedicated time set aside that you can meet with them, X amount of times a week. But with us during that time, we're with them side by side the entire time that school hours are happening.
Yes.
With that specific student. And it's also neat to see what happens in those settings, especially when the rapport is built and that trust factor comes alongside, that they're able to really touch on other things that maybe might not have happened initially. Like I think of one of our tutors that has a student that they work with, that we've had times where you have 2 hours, maybe 2 to 3 hours of time allotted to academics. Maybe a half hour was academics, but then the rest of it was focused on social skills or situations that occurred in their life. And so it's almost like this 360 opportunity for education. Now, it might not be the traditional reading, writing, and math, but you're able to talk about things that are relevant to their life that have been kind of speed bumps in a way for them to be successful in other areas of their life, particularly when we think about life skills and social skills.
Yes, absolutely. And just thinking of the different ways that, we were able to help students and get over those speed bumps in some ways. I mean, teachers, when you think of teacher in a broad sense of the term, you think they wear so many different hats in a day. And our tutors are very much the same way. They are the educator. They are a friend when our student needs it in that moment. They are a listening ear. Sometimes they act as a therapist in some ways, just to hear what the student's going through and talk through those situations so that the student can better understand things. And then, like you said, I mean, they might be allotted a 2-hour session and maybe they only really work on schoolwork for 30 minutes, but we get so much more accomplished in the other 90 that it's a successful day anyways.
And even when you have those days that aren't as successful, where you have a situation where maybe something occurred during that day that led them to not be able to focus.
Yeah.
And you might just not get done anything at all, unfortunately. But the fact that they showed up is the big one.
Yes.
And for us on an engagement level, if we can just get them there.
Yes.
Because a half hour worth of engagement is better than none at all.
Right.
But it's amazing what you can accomplish in that limited time of engagement. Because when you look at it, they showed up for 15 minutes. What could you have possibly gotten done? But when I think about what was accomplished in those 15 minutes, we may have been an hour and 45 of just the tutor just listening to what was going on in that person's life and all the challenges that were happening during that day or that week that got in the way of them being successful, in terms of a learning engagement standpoint. But the fact that they were able to get all of that out, it sets the stage for better engagement as the week goes.
Absolutely.
Or even leading into a weekend. For example, if it happened on a Friday, we've seen situations where it unfortunately clouds the rest of their weekend. But if they can get that out and process through it, then it really sets up to have a positive weekend leading into the following weekend of that Monday. So from my perspective, we see so many different situations kind of unveil themselves, or even sometimes unravel.
Yes. Yes.
in those cases. But being able to see all these unique things, I feel like it's also built the perspective of how Integrated Academy came together in the first place. Because I remember when this was imagined, I still remember the first time when we met.
Yes.
And you were a mentor at the time.
Yes.
And it was, brought to my attention like, hey, we have a teacher in the house. And I'm like, this is fantastic. We need to meet. And it all came together, and I was kind of breaking apart and telling you about the vision of what we had for, it was no name at that point.
No, it was just you and me at that point in the department.
Yeah, it was just the two of us. And now we are 3 additional tutors in. And it's been really fun to just see it all come together. And all of our tutors bring together a wealth of experience in different realms. Education all being at the heart of at the center of it, but just in different ways. And it's fun to see the moving parts of that team and the way that they've been able to work with our students. But back to that vision of what we had, it's amazing to think, that we had all these conversations and it's all come together of what Integrated Academy is today. And we're excited to keep building and expanding our offerings. And we're going to be able to do that over time. I want to talk about Admentum and what they bring to the table. They provide our curriculum. And we're also able to, now that we are our own accredited school, we can develop our own curriculum as well. But with Admentum, they provide us a lot of opportunities. And it's fun to see some of the classes that they can take. Of course, the core classes, but they have extensive offerings when you look at their electives as well.
Yeah. They have over 500 courses available to us to utilize for our students. And they have like electives, like they have one that's you watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy and you read the books and you see, like, you study literature in it and how it has affected our culture, our popular culture, and what that looks like. There are so many cool ones. There's a mythology one. And then we're developing, like you said, we can develop our own curriculum. So we're developing like life skills stuff, and we're bringing in some more of that, like home economics, family and consumer sciences stuff for our students, kind of those lost skills that we don't see very much. We can implement financial literacy stuff for our students too. So the amount of course offerings that Admentum offers to us in terms of curriculum is really extensive and really awesome. And being able to have access to that and dip into that it's exciting.
Well, on the preparation point two, from a testing standpoint, they offer test prep for ASVAB, for example, if we had someone who was interested in going towards the military. Of course, ACT prep. And those are huge.
Yes.
And we do have quite a few students who do go on to college. So having those opportunities available to us is awesome. But they just offer so many different things beyond just the core.
And even with the core classes, they offer different variants to it too. Like for biology, they have your typical regular biology, but then they have ones with virtual labs. They have ones where you can buy like a lab kit and do the labs hands-on, which is really cool. And they have chemistry ones that are very similar. They have earth and space science for a core class to take. They have different versions of math that you can take, different English classes, social studies, history, whatever it is. They have so many variations so that if we have a student that like needs a social studies credit, cool, here's a list of like 5 different classes that you could take. Which one interests you? Being able to offer that to our students is huge, because in the past they've been told, hey, this is the class you're taking, here you go. They're not usually given the choice of, hey, what class do you want to take? Which catches them by surprise sometimes.
Definitely want to talk about the idea of choice, which is one of the things that we are excited to be able to provide to our students, because some of our students have come from organizational settings that did not allow for as much freedom of choice, and that we're able to provide that to them. And for some, it's overwhelming. Yes, it is. Because they're like, well, man. So I think of one student in particular who was like, well, just tell me what I have to do and I'll do it.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, it looks like you have up to 5 choices here. And then you're looking at them like their head is going to explode. Like there's just too much going on there, too many opportunities, too much choice. And they're like, well, we don't have to make this decision right now, but we just want to give you the opportunity to have a say. But with the understanding that we come across some things that there just isn't as much say. Like when you look at math, or certain subjects, or even language arts, core language arts, are like, this is just kind of how it is, and we need to do the best we can to work our way through it. But then when you get into the electives, like we have some students that come in that have finished their core and they need electives. And then in that case, that's where the fun begins, because there are so many electives to choose from. And then they feel like there's more to do that is along the lines of what they're interested in, which is exciting. So that's always the one thing that we like to talk about, is that opportunity for choice and to give them to have a say. That's the biggest thing that for us is, and from my perspective, is we want them to have a say in all of this. Yeah. that this is A, it's their life, but B, this is their education. And there's importance to that. And aligning that importance, because for so long there were so many other things that were going on in their lives that education had maybe taken a back seat to that. And so now that we can realign that and bring that back to the table, the forefront for them to have some say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it helps that they have that say, so they are the leaders of their education when they come to us. They have a say in it. And like you said, there are some instances where it's like, no, sorry, you have to take this class. But we want them to be the leaders, the champions of their education, and we're there to support them. We're there to help guide them through their choices and their educational journey while they're with us. We want them to take the reins, so to speak, of their education.
Well, and the student-led piece, which is one thing we'll talk about in conversations interdepartmentally, but as well as when I talk to people that are interested in what we're doing, and particularly sending their students here. That's a question that comes up, is what is the format? And they're like, our goal is to empower the student as much as possible at every turn. And if we're not at that point of empowerment, equipping them with the foundational skills to be able to do that. And a lot of that comes in its mindset changes, really, that help us equip them to be able to feel like they can have a say.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, especially when they've been in scenarios where they didn't have as much autonomy. But the fact that we can cultivate that and really bring that to the forefront, that you matter, you're important, you bring a lot of important things to the table, and we want to be here to help you capitalize on those things and organize it in such a way so you can be successful. I feel like we can't reference the success of Integrated Academy without the support piece to it. So I want to always bring up our coordinators,
yes,
our mentors,
oh my gosh, yes,
our administrators. When you look at it, it takes a village to be successful. And I know that you can attest, and probably many, many times over, the importance of mentors in getting some of our students graduated.
Yeah. Half the battle, half the battle that, like you talked about earlier, sometimes just getting the student to come to school that day. And that falls largely on the mentor side of things. And so a lot of our students' success in education comes from that mentor side. And yeah, it takes a village. They are a huge part, because not only do they get them to the school, to their sessions, but they also encourage them to continue doing schoolwork when they come home. Or if students having a bad day and isn't wanting to go to school, the mentors are there to be like, no, this is good for you. You want to go. You have a good time when you go there, right? Yeah. Okay.
Just getting there is the hard part.
Yes, it is. It's half the battle sometimes. And then when they get there, half the time they don't want to leave. I can think of a couple students that usually hang around and joke around and kid around with anybody any of us, of the tutors that will listen and have the time to spend with them, which is, we usually always make time because that's important.
Well, we also recognize that some people, students aren't morning people.
Yep.
And maybe they do better in the afternoons. And so we formulate our scheduling around that. And it takes some time to get to know a person, because sometimes when they're maybe struggling to get to school, we don't know if it's like, I just don't like school, or I'm just not a morning person.
Right.
And in some cases it's both.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of things to work through to be able to get to that point to where you can get them there. But we had one student in particular that had not been successful at a lot of other placements and destinations. And it really just took the point of showing up all the time for that student to the point they're like, wait a second, I think these people really care.
Yep.
And that we were able to go through and continue to push forward to get them to that success. But it's the coordinators too. I want to talk about the coordinators, carve some time out there, because without them, and their role, those are the two of the most important. Everybody plays their part. The therapists, of course, too.
Yeah.
There's But the coordinator and the mentors, because we've had so many coordinators that will show up
Yeah.
and be like, hey, it's time to get going. Mm-hmm. And they'll be like, don't you have something else to do? And I'm like, I do, but at the same time, this is important.
Yep.
It's important to you because I know that you have goals, and it's important to us because we want to see you successful. So what do we have to do to get there?
Yep.
And we've had to be very creative in those approaches. But ultimately we do get them there, but there's, the challenges along the way, but yeah, those are exciting.
Our coordinators, I want to give a huge shout out to them because they always have our back with our decisions that we make. They are always ready to jump in if one of their students is refusing to come in. They'll be like, okay, I'm going to head over and I'm going to see if I can't get them to come in. Their support and us supporting them too, it's a team effort, it's a village effort, and we just have such an amazing team of coordinators right now that really truly have their students' best interests at heart, and you can see it and you can feel it. And so they're an amazing group of individuals that I'm lucky enough to work with, because I work pretty closely with our program coordinators in getting those student schedules made out and figuring out, okay, the student's not a morning person. Do you have time in the afternoon? Yeah, we do. We have some time right here. So it's nice to be able to have those relationships and those conversations. And they're just an awesome team.
Well, and when the time comes to, say, add employment to the mix, community-based employment, that also becomes a big one because those communication areas are very important with scheduling. Mm-hmm. And really the goal of building our students up to not just be high school students, but we're trying to also make them as well-rounded as possible during their time with us. Yeah. From a citizenship standpoint. And that's always exciting to be able to work with them when that next step happens.
Me having that good relationship with our program coordinators, when their student does get a job, being able to be like, hey, they have training this day, they probably won't be in. Okay, no problem. I'll just cancel their tutoring for that day and we'll make up the time somewhere else. Or, hey, student might need to have a different tutoring schedule since they now have a job. And it's like, great, awesome, that's exciting. We always encourage and celebrate when our students get those community-based jobs. I can think of one that it was a struggle there for a while to get them into a job, but they found one that they really were excited about, and so we encouraged that. And I had a talk with them and I was like, hey, if we need to move your tutoring schedule around this job, we will make it work. And I think that also helps our students to realize, hey, we're here for you. We want what's best for you. And that student looked at me and they're like, really? I was like, yeah, you're excited about this job. I want you to be successful in your job and school, so we'll work around it.
Well, whenever I get into these conversations, we tell ourselves, keep it for 15 to 20 minutes, and then it expands far beyond that. But I think one of the big reasons is that we're both incredibly passionate about education, and as well as what we do here at Integrated Interventions and now Integrated Academy. Just to say it out loud again brings a big smile to my face. It's incredibly exciting. And to see all the hard work come to fruition. Mm-hmm. And both of us have put a lot of time into it, but also our tutors have also, it's been a very much a collective effort in bringing all that together to ensure that all the moving pieces are in alignment. So that's exciting to bring that all together.
Yes, so incredibly exciting. And hats off to our tutors, because there were definitely pieces that I wouldn't have been able to do on my own. We wouldn't have been able to do on our own, that they really stepped up and was like, hey, can you do this? Yeah, sure, no problem. And it was a huge team effort and it paid off beautifully.
Very much so. So I guess that comes to the point to where we kind of wrap things up. I want to definitely highlight www.integratedinterventionsllc.com/Integrated Academy. To be able to say that out loud is pretty awesome. Also, a big shout out to Julie and Dawson, who have been working very hard behind the scenes to get Integrated Academy up and running in terms of our website and all those areas. Marketing has played a gigantic part in this, and putting it together to be able to put out a very awesome product to the masses, to where they can see all of our offerings and everything that is Integrated Academy. So once again, a big shout out to them. But you have been listening to an Integrated Interventions podcast, a very special Integrated Academy edition. So I'm once again, thank you for tuning in. Kirsti, thank you for joining me so we could have this conversation.
Thank you for inviting me. It was awesome. I enjoyed it.
So my name is Patrick Dundas. I am the Director of Education for Integrated Interventions. It has been a pleasure to have everybody here today, and we will catch you next time. Once again, www.interventionsllc.com/Integrated Academy. Also, make sure to go to all our social media outlets, like, subscribe, all the things, and I look forward to seeing you next time.